Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here with Brother Bo, and it's time to review Wicked. This is a film that in the beginning of the year, I wasn't paying that much attention to it. I thought the trailer looked all right, but then the reactions come around and I am just seeing nonstop praise. And I think, all right, hell yeah, bring it on. I actually really enjoyed In the Heights. And so I went into this film really expecting a rousing, wonderful, crowd-pleasing time, as that is what the vast majority of audiences are getting out of it.
And it's also become a pretty surefire Oscar contender across the board, which is really interesting. And it kind of fills this populist slot that I think the Oscars this year otherwise are sorely lacking. This will be interesting because we have a difference of opinion. For once. A difference. Why are you a hater?
So
why do you hate?
I didn't dislike most of the movie, but I did think it was kind of fine most of the time. I am able to get swept up in a good musical. I'm not even one of those people who's like, oh, musicals just don't work on me. Like, they actually do. Something about the movie just didn't really rope me in most scenes. I'll give you a couple examples of scenes that really did rope me in. The scene where Elphaba and Glinda are, dancing. I thought that was a really nice scene. I liked the popular scene a lot.
Yeah.
Before the midpoint dance thing, I was kind of mildly engaged with the movie, I will say. I think it's due to two things. One is that the visuals were not doing a lot for me, and I think we're really lacking in the lighting department. There's just not a lot of dazzle here. And the sun in the film is white. They have a white sun. And when you go to the film, you might need to wear your blue light glasses because of how aggressively white balanced everything is.
Yeah, it's neutral. It's white balance.
Yes, everything's very, very white balanced.
I gotta say,
it's not very vibrant.
I gotta say, I don't understand the backlash about the cinematography. I was really just like, okay, where is it not working? Like, where does the light not work? There's like one scene in particular I can think of where she's like in a really gray field. That happens for about, 30 seconds. It's weird. Other than that, I thought like there were a couple shots that looked a little bit murky, a little bit
washed out.
There's
like a little bit washed out
film of white haze. But for the most part, this was a nicely polished looking film. And I think this reaction about its visuals is like overblown Twitter nonsense.
No. Why wouldn't we expect the movie to add some dazzle to the visuals? Okay. I think some of the camera movements are fine.
Yeah, the camera works good.
But like in a musical, I think we expect some color, some shadows. Like West Side.
This is not a dully colored film.
Oh, it is.
No, the neutral like white balancing of it is, I think, because the sets are so dazzling and colorful that they don't need to add color in the color correction.
Oh, they subtracted color.
No, I don't think so.
Oh,
I think it was plenty saturated.
Literally look at like the actual Wizard of Oz movie from 1939 versus this movie.
That was a more saturated film, yes.
Yeah.
But it didn't bother me how desaturated this one was. I understand like there's one scene with Ariana Grande where she's singing by herself. I think it's the end of Popular, and it does become like more pink.
Yep, I thought,
I know like people are like, oh my God, that's what I've been waiting for. But listen, let's take that scene as a comparison. The sets in this film are so full of color. I don't think the lighting needed to be like gelled. I don't think it needed a LUT over it that was like adding a color overlay. And I felt completely dazzled by the production design and the costumes that I didn't need there to be like more color injected by the lighting. It being more of a white balanced movie just let me experience the sets kind of how they were. Maybe I would,
but with less
I wouldn't
color.
Object to like, okay, you could have bumped up the saturation a little bit, but it didn't bother me. I mean, I just think it's funny how much it's bothering people. I also think it's crazy that people are calling the cinematography bad when they just don't like the color grading. I think it's a little bit different. I know that they go together.
That's not the same thing. If you look at a movie such as West Side Story or Moulin Rouge or La La Land, there is a lot more going on than just a difference of color grade.
I'm not saying this, should get a cinematography nomination at the Oscars, but it looked like it was shot on these massive sets and that the sets were all kind of evenly lit. Like it wasn't really playing that much with shadow. And that's just the style of the film.
I would just say that most of the scenes didn't have anything distinct about the visuals, whereas even in the heights, some of the scenes are probably victim to the same kind of thing I'm talking about, but there was a variety in how the scenes looked, how they were shot from musical number to musical number that I thought added a lot of life to it.
Sure. It could have had more style. Sure. It could have had more character in the visuals, but like, do you think it really like took away from the film to just make the choices it did?
Well, that might have been part of the reason I wasn't fully engaged with the movie. There wasn't that much character to the visual choices in the movie. I think that they supported the performances and choreography and set design and costume design. It supported it.
I agree. It supported it.
So that's one thing. Like if I was really engaged with the story, I might be able to forgive it a little more, I guess. But the story, I think it's just a very obvious movie about how discrimination is not good.
If you think that the movie is just about a message, of course you're going to feel that way.
Well, what else is it about?
It's about the characters and the friendship. I was more invested in who are these characters and what's going to happen to their relationship. And I found that it was very complex. There were like different ways you could see their motivations at any given time. They both want multiple things at once. Galinda's not entirely Galinda. She's also part Elphaba, and Elphaba is not entirely Elphaba. Like she also has this Galinda within her. And I don't know if it's like literally just that pink and green go well together, but whenever they're like on screen together, I'm like, yes, like be a love story. Like I want this love story to happen. And I love that, you know, you start out with this like, I don't like you song, which feels like, you know, maybe it's a love song in a way, but as the film goes on, even in the score, they like weave the theme back in and it becomes or their friendship theme or motif. Part of the story just had my heart. I liked when they were connecting how like the eye line was very close to the camera. And I also like that, you know, even in the musical scenes between them, like there were a lot of medium close-ups just to like let the face acting shine, I suppose. Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo were just bringing like the best versions of these characters. And I really just fell in love with those characters. Like that's mainly my reasoning. Maybe at 3 hours, there's not quite enough of like a journey. I really am curious like how that relationship's going to transform in the second half of Wicked. But like that's the main reason why I liked it. I just thought it was fun. The songs are obviously good. I think we've had some musicals that like where like the songs aren't amazing, like Amelia Perez. And this was just a fun like foot tapping good time. I also just thought it was dazzling. I have not seen sets and costumes this like off the charts gorgeous, I guess since Poor Things, which isn't that long, but I was very like transported and just impressed. And I do think this is a good example of a film where when it's not using CGI, it's like really good looking and the sets look absolutely massive and expansive. And I loved how immersed I felt in that, where I couldn't like really see the seams. Of course, when it does use CGI, I think it falls apart just a little bit more. But, you know, it's kind of movie has to have some CGI.
I also thought that the winning aspect of the movie was the central relationship between the two main characters. But after Popular, I didn't think anything really that interesting happened between them. After they take the train to go meet the wizard, I became very disengaged with the movie. Like, I felt that this was where its division into two parts really stuck out to me, because you're getting a scene like, oh, we're off, we're beginning our journey, we're off to see the wizard, and it's like 85% through the movie, but it feels like a scene that would happen, you know, maybe 40-50% through the movie, and it's just kind of this awkward thing, and then you get like a second town song right at the point of the movie where the stakes are really supposed to be hitting you and amping up, and you're just kind of getting like this lax town song, which doesn't really add much to the story, doesn't increase the stakes of this relationship, which at this point of the film I'm missing.
Yeah, if you didn't like that it's in two parts, that's fine, because you know it's like, okay, we're entering the third act and we're getting a town song that's sort of weird. But I think if you can adjust your expectations and accept that it's two movies and that this is like part one of the story, I don't think it's that bad.
Yeah, you can adjust your expectations and accept that. But I mostly look at movies as how they work on their own. And I think that there are some elements to this that are somewhat complete. The characters both have an arc, although I think it occurs a little bit early. But I think we're missing pieces here that feel nice to have in a full movie. For example, every relationship thread is loose. All the love stories, all the like subplots. There's a few things in the film that kind of build up and then don't have the normal expected payoff that a typical, you know, structure of a full story has. And also, you know, mainly the second half of this story likely contains the true test of these two's bond, the true test of their friendship. And then they come together even stronger. Like, that's so what the full movie
unfortunately
gets.
I just feel like what you're saying is uninteresting because you're just fighting the fact that it's part one.
Oh, and who decided to make it two parts? Did anybody have to do that? No, that's the filmmaker's decision.
This is a decision that works because if you made it into one film, it would be 5 hours.
I would argue there's a lot that you can cut here. The musical is 2 hours and 40 minutes. I think it's weird to defend that, well, the movie just is in two parts, so you have to accept it. It's like, I want to accept it, But I also didn't make the decision for it to be in 2 parts. That was a creative decision made by the people who made it. I would forgive it if I liked the movie more.
The reason why I would defend this is I felt like the story was moving along well enough that I wouldn't have changed it too much. It's a fun universe to be immersed in. There's not just one protagonist, but 2 that we get to intimately explore. And there's a lot of musical numbers, and of course those take up more of the runtime. I could see how this may have been rushed in a one film if they tried to cram everything in.
The animal racism subplot also just doesn't do anything for me. I am this way with Isle of Dogs. I felt this way about White God. It's so easy to root for animals to not be discriminated against. It's the easiest thing in the world. And it's also really easy to root for somebody who has green skin in a movie to not be discriminated against. Like maybe the movie just goes down like very easy to me. I agree that there were some complexities to their relationship where Galinda is kind of into this relationship, but she's also a bit two-faced. And I would have liked to see that explored a bit more. And I thought it was interesting. I thought for the most part it was a bit difficult for me to be engaged beyond the surface. But there's a lot to like here. Like, I am not recommending the movie. Obviously, most people are enjoying this, and I can mostly understand why they like it. Ariana Grande's comedic sensibilities are really great.
I think her take on the character makes me excited about her as a film actress in general. Cynthia Erivo, I also just thought was fantastic. I loved how Erivo took, the stage performance and made it much more internal. Just really let her soul pour out. The character herself is defensive and guarded, but it's so easy to fall in love with her. It doesn't feel like she's leaving the audience out of those emotions. The fact that these two are vocalist powerhouses,
I think there's something to be said about how unabashedly theater kid the film is, and I think that's cool that it really leans into that.
The dancing was really fun as well.
Yeah, I liked Jonathan Bailey too. I thought he was a standout aside from the two leads. He was really funny and charismatic.
I think Michelle Yeoh is fine, but it's not like I couldn't see another actor playing that role and doing as good of a job. Jeff Goldblum, look, he has a good voice. I'll definitely give him that. But it was a little distracting how he's like, I'm Jeff Goldblum. I bring my personality to everything now. It's like I'm doing the same thing on Tim and Erica I am as the Wizard of Oz, and I'm being sort of weird. And it didn't really make sense. It just didn't really make sense. And I thought the CGI was good.
I thought the design of the goat was actually pretty well done.
Yeah, I think the animals emoted really well. Part of me is I would... sue me, okay? I know it wouldn't work for our time, but it's completely just a time period thing. I wouldn't mind if human actors dressed up like monkeys and goats and shit. Didn't bother me in the original Wizard of Oz. I can suspend my disbelief, but I get that it's a time period thing where you can't do it now because people expect more realism in films.
I think that the animal CGI is very good here. The CGI at the end is a little muddy looking.
Yeah, I get it.
The opening shot, I didn't think was...
No, the opening shot was atrocious.
Yeah.
Really looking forward to part 2. Give this an 8 out of 10.
I liked a decent amount about the movie, but overall, I would kind of shrug this off. 5 out of 10 for me. So talking Oscars, after seeing the movie, I still am predicting the same nominations for it. I think this is getting picture. If you don't believe it, it's because the movie is going to be this undeniable force of populism. I mean, the Letterboxd right now is insane. It'll change a little bit, but it's insane. The theater I saw it in, people were going absolutely apeshit. It's like Avengers Endgame, but it's a genre that the Oscars appreciate a little bit more. Most importantly is you have nominations underneath Best Picture that makes sense. This is costumes and production design, which the film's winning. How is it not winning that? You can cling to Dune if you want, but the Oscars want to go for a universe that they haven't been brought into before, I think is evident from if you go back and see what they award. And the Wicked universe feels expansive and colorful and creative, and it's all those things that I think you need to win.
This has to win both. It would be crazy if it didn't, especially given the fact that Wicked's probably in Best Picture.
Ariana Grande is a pretty easy nomination too, I think. She's just very lively and charismatic, and she's an easy standout.
Yeah, she has that popular musical number. I think it's going to be the most memorable scene for her. I also think for nominations, we got a sound nomination here. That's gonna happen, I think. Makeup and hairstyling is really close. It doesn't have prosthetics, and there's no denying that they prefer prosthetics whenever possible for nominations. However, there are some nominees in the past, like Mank, that did not have prosthetics, that they just nominated for hair.
Was the lineup that year stacked with prosthetic contenders like it is this year?
Perhaps not. And the hairstyling here is a huge standout, and also they made her skin green. So I'm sure there's some nuances to how complicated that green color was and getting it right, blah, blah, blah. But Mainly, I feel like the standout here is hairstyling. So I don't know how far that goes. Like, I think it's on the cusp.
It's like how people thought Barbie or The Great Gatsby was getting nominated. It's really a matter of if the competition on the shortlist has more films that have like more prosthetic work in that. So I think that's on the cusp.
I think adapted screenplay is possible. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. There are 4 movies I think are above Wicked, and which includes Sing Sing and Nickel Boys. I'm starting to think Emilia Perez is on the cusp for that nomination.
Yeah.
And this could be the film that swaps for it.
What about A Complete Unknown swap?
If a Complete Unknown could also get in over both the musicals. Let's forget A Complete Unknown for a second. Why couldn't Wicked swap for Emilia Perez? Why not?
I have a great reason for you. Because Emilia Perez is an original musical that just happens to be in the adapted category, and typically Broadway adaptations don't get nominated for adapted screenplay at the Oscars. They actually just don't. Also, what is it about the writing that like is, I don't know. Emilia Perez, you could say, is like, you know, super batshit and risky.
It would be more like they just love this movie, so they're going to nominate it in the categories that they can. Also, I think the crux of my screenplay argument is that Wicked actually might be close to like the top 3 of Best Picture.
Oh, I don't think so. It feels nothing like a Best Picture winner.
It doesn't feel like a Best Picture winner, but I could see how in a year like this, it could potentially take over because it stands out so much from the other Best Picture contenders. The other films that are contending for the win are like indie pictures, and that's not a bad thing. Obviously, the Oscars will nominate indie pictures.
They would rather.
But there might be like a fever for this film. I don't know if it wins SAG Ensemble. Especially because I think the lead performances and then Jonathan Bailey are like great, but you know, no one else really stands out too much. The main thing that makes it hard to win Best Picture here, I think, is what you were saying. It's a part 1. It's hard to like jump the gun and give it a best.
I have a lot of other reasons for you. It's not just that it's a part 1. It's like this Broadway musical thing. When's the last time a well-known adaptation like that won Best Picture?
Yeah.
That has like a completely different life off the screen.
Yeah, it would be rare.
And a movie that's probably not even getting nominated for director or a screenplay.
Right.
Not even coming close to winning either, right?
We may as well mention the director. John Chu's not going to happen at the Oscars.
Absolutely
The Oscars won't do that. Maybe the DGA would do it.
Sure.
Maybe. It's just not going to happen. Their branch is not like that.
It's like Bohemian Rhapsody, Top Gun Maverick, Black Panther. These are movies that did not contend in directing at all, weren't close to winning screenplay, but some people were like, oh, what if they could win Best Picture because they're so populous? And it just didn't happen. Like, I think that's what this is going to be. I think it's just not going to happen.
Wicked's going to give people a feeling that the other nominees may not be able to compete with, may have a hard time competing with. That's my argument for why it might be like really high up. And then, we didn't even talk about lead actress. Lead actress, I think Cynthia Erivo is weirdly, I know this is like disappointing for some people, but I weirdly think she's on the cusp, and I wouldn't be shocked if she missed. And I think it could be like Margot Robbie and Barbie, even though for me, like, she stood out maybe even more than Margot Robbie and Barbie to me.
It's like Fantasia Barrino in The Color Purple, but yeah. I know that wasn't in Best Picture, but the love was being really directed to Danielle Brooks. I personally thought Fantasia Barrino was the best performance in that film, but because it's easier to get into supporting, it just didn't quite happen, and Erivo's performance is less flashy than Ariana Grande's. I didn't come away thinking that it was like locked or sewn up in any way. I mean, I definitely think she's in the top 7 or 8 or whatever you want, but
I think she could very well get nominated. I would say it's like 50-50 maybe.
Well, let's put it this way.
She's going to get SAG
and probably maybe
and
Critics'
Golden
Choice.
Globe.
And Golden Globe.
I don't know. I don't think she's going to get BAFTA.
No.
And then that's where like the Oscar could be a big snub. And if she gets snubbed, I know what's going to happen. Like, it's going to be exactly like Barbie. They're going to say Wicked didn't get director and it didn't get actress, and this is like a major injustice. Like, I already see it coming. So just prepare for it if that happens.
What about visual effects?
Oh yeah, visual effects is possible. I think I actually may have moved that into my 5.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
It's a big movie. It's in Best Picture.
Oh, and
has animal effects.
Big
in it.
movie in Best Picture equals visual effects. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It does?
Mm-hmm.
When?
Just, in general.
Oh, what about Black Panther? Doesn't that show
that was a miss? Yeah.
Yeah, but that shows that they'll snub something.
They might snub it.
If they aren't that impressed.
They might snub it. It's like 5 or 6 for me.
I'm sure 6 or 7 for me. I think the animal effects were great, and I think everything else was fine and probably not that likely to impress a whole lot. But yeah, those are our thoughts on Wicked. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing.
You gonna see Wicked on Thanksgiving?